Good evening and a warm welcome to all the viewers. I am Avinash Singh and on behalf of RPG Life Sciences, I welcome all for today's webinar on management of breast cancer in COVID era. To talk more on this, we have with us a renowned and a respected oncologist of India, Dr. Kunj Hari Mehdi, as our guest speaker for today. Welcome Mehdi sir and pleasure having you here with us. To give a brief introduction about Dr. Mehdi, Dr. Mehdi is a distinguished and one of the best oncologists currently practicing as a medical and pediatric oncologist and hemato-oncologist in India. He has been working as a director oncology and senior consultant and head of medical oncology and hemato-oncology in Batra Hospital and Medical Research Center, New Delhi. In addition to his MBBS gold medal, MD, and DM medical oncology degrees, Dr. Mehdi has experience of working as a senior research associate in AIMS, New Delhi, under Council for Scientific and Industrial Research under HRDG Government of India for 3 years. He was also trained on clinical research in Oxford University, UK. In addition to this, he is also trained in practice management in Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Dr. Mehdi has also been awarded with Oncologist of the Year award by Brand Achiever in 2015 based on his outstanding contribution in cancer care. Moreover, he is a principal investigator in many clinical trials and has also many publications to his credit in reputed national and international journals. He is also an active member of Association of Oncologists of North India and Dibrugarh Onco Society, where he is an honorary medical advisor in an NGO named Pratishruti. Dr. Mehdi has actively participated in various health programs and CMEs for benefit of patients and medical fraternity. So without any further ado, I would welcome Dr. Mehdi and would request him to please carry forward the session. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Very good evening to all, and thank you RPG for giving me the opportunity to speak on the topic and on the in view of the current pandemic, COVID pandemic. Treatment of cancer is taking little backseat, and in spite of that, we as oncologists and all the people who are involved in the treatment of and management of cancer, we are also having tough time because of the COVID pandemic. So, in today's discussion, we will be briefly discussing about the management of breast cancer in COVID era. We will be discussing the topic as follows. So, this will be initially the high risk factors in COVID-19, then pre-COVID early breast cancer treatment, then breast cancer management during COVID-19, and what is the NCCN guidelines saying about this particular topic, and ESMO guidelines, then some key recommendation, and finally the conclusion. So, what are the high risk factors in COVID-19? If we consider the treatment modalities of cancer, this includes the chemotherapy, radiotherapy, targeted therapy, immunotherapy, also the surgery, and other biological therapies. Because of these modalities of treatment, the immunity alteration is there. Because of that, the chances of having and chances of catching the COVID infection is more. And as we all know, because of chemotherapy, the immunity goes down. Because of radiotherapy also, not directly it affects the immunity, but because of the poor nutrition and some skin reaction and mucosal reaction, there is problem in proper nutrition. So because of that, the immunity usually goes down. So because of the immunotherapy also, the immunity alteration is there, and all these factors usually leads to the decreased immunity and increased susceptibility to COVID infection and sometimes even severity of infection, COVID infection is also increases. Because of the cancer itself, the immune status is low, and because of the metastatic disease itself, there is problem, and it makes uh, susceptible for the COVID severity and COVID infection. Patients who receive cancer treatment in past also, sometimes um, these people also become susceptible for COVID infection, and they are also sometimes high risk. So what was the treatment? What is the treatment modality in early breast cancer when COVID is not there? As we all know, the treatment of breast cancer is a multimodality treatment. Multimodality treatment means this is called combined modality treatment also. The multiple modalities of cancer treatment involves in the treatment of breast cancer. For example, surgery is also needed. Chemotherapy is also treatment in breast cancer. Radiotherapy is also treatment in breast cancer. There is a role of hormonal treatment. There is role of targeted treatment like anti-HER2 treatment. So, in breast cancer, the treatment is a multimodality treatment. If we consider the early breast cancer is the localized breast cancer when tumor is T1 or T2 disease, that is less than 5 centimeter, and lymph node may be usually negative or maybe one N1 node positive. So this comes in the early breast cancer group. When the tumor is less than or equal to 2 centimeter, optimal surgery is feasible with the exception of aggressive phenotypes. So initial treatment is surgery in those cases when tumor is very small. If tumor is little big, it is more than 2 centimeter, then maybe optimal surgery is not possible initially. So in those cases, systemic treatment is done to downsize the tumor so that better surgery is possible in the future. And radiotherapy is needed usually in some cases of early breast cancer after surgery. When breast conservation surgery is done, this is also indication of radiotherapy in early breast cancer. Otherwise, there are some risk factor for radiotherapy. If those risk factors are present, those criteria fulfilled, then radiotherapy is indicated. So systemic treatment is needed. Systemic induction therapy, that is chemotherapy or hormonal therapy or targeted therapy, is needed in early breast cancer when initial surgery is not optimal. That is, optimal surgery is not possible in those cases. So in those cases where surgery is not done and chemotherapy or other systemic therapy is given, like hormonal therapy or targeted therapy. So after some doses of chemotherapy, response assessment is done. If there is good response, then those patients are subjected to surgery. And if there is no satisfactory response, then some more chemotherapy may be given, or otherwise mastectomy is needed in those cases. So if there is very good response, very small tumor, breast conservation surgery is possible. So in those cases, breast conservation surgery is done. And in those cases where tumor is bigger, optimal reconstruction is not possible and preservation of cosmesis is not possible, then in those cases, mastectomy surgery is needed. Mastectomy plus reconstruction is needed. So as this table is showing, systemic treatment, then response assessment, then surgery. Surgery may be breast conservation surgery or mastectomy. After breast conservation surgery, radiotherapy is definitely needed, and after mastectomy surgery, radiotherapy may be needed, may not be needed. If the tumor is very small and lymph nodes are negative, then radiotherapy is not needed. Post-operative radiotherapy is needed if the tumor is big, that is more than 5 centimeter, or if there is lymph node positive. But systemic therapy is definitely needed. Systemic therapy includes the chemotherapy and anti-HER2 therapy in HER2 positive breast cancer. So I would like to mention here what is HER2, what is ERPR. In breast cancers are divided in 4 categories on the basis of hormonal receptor positive or negative and HER, that is human epidermal receptor positive or negative. So if all positive, so this is triple positive, ERPR, HER all positive, so this is triple positive. If all negative, that is called triple negative. If ER positive, PR positive and HER negative, this is one group, and vice versa, that is ERPR negative and HER positive is another group. So we have 4 types of breast cancer on the basis of hormonal receptor status and HER receptor positivity status. So as the table is showing, the post-operative radiotherapy is applicable when there is BCS is done and in larger tumor. And post-operative endocrine therapy is needed when hormonal receptor is positive. And chemotherapy is needed when tumor size is more than 1 centimeter. And anti-HER2 therapy is needed when the tumor is HER2 positive. So these are the systemic treatment in breast cancer, early breast cancer. And like I have told just now, ER negative or ER positive. So these are hormonal receptor negative. So there is no role of hormone. In hormonal receptor positive cases, hormonal treatment is needed. Again, if ER negative but HER positive, then those patients need the anti-HER2 therapy. And if triple negative, that is TNBC means triple negative breast cancer, ER negative, PR negative, HER negative. So in those cases, there is no role of hormone, there is no role of anti-HER2 therapy. Those cases are treated with chemotherapy only. And ER positive group, maybe HER negative. So in those cases, only hormonal treatment is needed. If ER positive and HER positive, then anti-HER2 treatment and hormonal treatment both are indicated. So this is the treatment of early breast cancer without COVID, that is pre-COVID area. Now breast cancer management method during COVID. What is the difference in the management of breast cancer before COVID and after COVID, that is during COVID? So we have to think about what are the risk category, as I have mentioned in the beginning. Because of the chemotherapy, because of the disease itself, because of the radiotherapy, because of the immunotherapy or targeted therapy, these patients are basically high risk for COVID and COVID severity. So basic idea is to reduce the exposure and visit to hospital if somehow it is possible. So we have to discuss and adopt. We have to see the guideline, what the guideline says. We have to treat after triaging. So we have to categorize those patients which definitely needs chemotherapy or definitely needs hospital visit. So we have to follow that. If we can avoid the hospital visit, if we can convert to teleconsultation, so we have to do that. And accordingly, we have to check the outcome of workflow. So if we change the system, if we change the modality, does it affect the outcome? So we have to think about that also. What the NCCN says, the NCCN guidelines for this the treatment of breast cancer during COVID pandemic, that it says that what is the objective? The objective of this special communication or guideline is to see the patient scenarios by urgency of treatment by specialty. So where there is urgency, and we have to do accordingly to make treatment recommendation based on these priorities. So the objective of this special communication is to prioritize the patient scenarios by urgency of treatment by specialty, to make treatment recommendations based on these priorities within each specialty, and responding to the pandemic by modifying patient care to minimize exposure risk and preserve resources. The representatives were from the ASCO and the American Society of Breast Surgeons, the NCCN, the NAPBC, that is National Accreditation Program for Breast Cancer Center, Breast Center, then the COC, the American College of Radiology, ACR, all these were the representatives were from all these groups. For breast disease focused outpatient visits. So let's see how we can change the outpatient visit. That means wherever possible, the basic idea is wherever possible, we should reduce the hospital visit and OPD visit so that patient can be advised over telephone, that is teleconsultation or video consultation, and by that way we can reduce the exposure. So for that purpose, priority wise, it is divided as priority A, priority B, and priority C. What is priority A? Potentially unstable. That is, there is hematoma, there is infection. So in those cases are kept in the priority A. So there should be hospital visit in those cases. We cannot avoid. New diagnosis of invasive cancer may convert to telemedicine visit. If there is new diagnosis, so for initial evaluation, some initial work, so we can convert to telemedicine visit. In priority B, new diagnosis of non-invasive cancer, in those cases, convert as many visits to telemedicine visit. In case of post-op patients, this also comes in the priority B, and post-op patient, wherever possible, it should be converted to telemedicine visit. And established patients with new problem or symptoms from treatment convert as many visits to telemedicine. So the basic idea is wherever possible, we should convert the hospital visit to a telemedicine visit. That is either video or teleconsultation. In priority C, established patients with no new issues, survivorship patients, that is after completion of treatment, that is breast cancer survivors, and finally the patients at high risk for breast cancer, that is these are for screening. So in those cases, wherever possible, visits should be deferred, postponed, or converted to telemedicine. In priority A and in priority B, diagnostic imaging for breast symptoms or a BI-RADS 4-5 screening mammogram. In those cases, patient may have to visit hospital, but otherwise that should be converted to telemedicine visit. For biopsies and abnormal mammogram on breast symptoms, these are in priority B group, so this needs hospital visits, definitely. Now for chemotherapy. In priority A, chemotherapy for triple negative and HER2 positive. So these cases should be treated with proper chemotherapy and proper anti-HER2 therapy. So we cannot postpone the treatment in this category, this group. Higher priority is given when there is, in this group of patients, when there is triple negative or HER2 positive cases, in those patients, neoadjuvant endocrine therapy or neoadjuvant targeted therapy should be given, and that may be prolonged and that may be completed whole course of neoadjuvant therapy may be completed before undergoing surgery to avoid the hospital admission and direct exposure. Next. In early line chemotherapy, that is chemotherapy likely to improve outcomes in metastatic. In metastatic setting also, sometimes if there is grossly symptomatic patients, we cannot delay the chemotherapy. So in those cases, chemotherapy should be given on time, and we cannot avoid chemotherapy in these patients. But when in some cases of maintenance chemotherapy, that can be delayed. Like follow-up imaging, restaging, ECG, all these investigations can be delayed. For anti-HER2 therapy in HER2 positive cases, adjuvant antibody treatment for treatment usually given for 12 months, but this because of COVID, some people may advise to reduce the duration of treatment, but it should not be. It should be without compromising the outcome. And continuation of standard adjuvant endocrine therapy. So the meaning of this that endocrine therapy are usually with the hormonal tablets. So even with COVID, there is no problem in continuation of adjuvant treatment with endocrine therapy. So this is a better option. So if somehow we can convert the other treatment to endocrine treatment, this is a better option. Chemotherapy schedule may be modified so as to reduce clinical visits. For instance, using 2 or 3 weeks dosing instead of weekly dosing for selected agents when appropriate. For example, in breast cancer, paclitaxel is given weekly and docetaxel is given 3 weekly regimen. So, in order to reduce the hospital visit, instead of 12 visits for weekly paclitaxel, we can give the paclitaxel either 3 weekly, or we can substitute the paclitaxel with docetaxel, which is given usually in 3 weekly interval. So this is another way to reduce the hospital visit. And another important point is that wherever there is suspicion, there is possibility of neutropenia, in those cases, prophylactic granulocytic colony stimulating factor, that is filgrastim, is given to avoid neutropenia and neutropenia related complications. And in neoadjuvant endocrine therapy based on randomized trial, so preoperative treatment wherever possible, suppose in elderly patients where hormonal treatment acts better, so in those cases, instead of chemotherapy, we can give neoadjuvant endocrine therapy also. This is another way to reduce the hospital visit. And anti-HER2 therapy, that is trastuzumab and pertuzumab, are unlikely to affect immune function and should be safe for patients. That's why this can be given on time with proper doses. Endocrine therapy, we do not have any problem, like oral agents used widely in adjuvant or metastatic setting, that is tamoxifen, aromatase inhibitors, that is anastrozole, letrozole, exemestane, all these drugs should have no effect on immune function and can be safely continued. Fulvestrant should have no effect on immune function but requires monthly clinical administration. That's why maybe fulvestrant should be avoided wherever possible and oral endocrine treatment should be given. And now the ESMO guidelines. What the ESMO guidelines is? European Society of Medical Oncology guidelines, cancer patients prioritization. The approach is, there is tiered approach, that is tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3. Tier 1 is the high priority intervention, Tier 2 is the medium priority, and Tier 3 is the low priority intervention. Defined according to the criteria of the cancer care scenario and the Huntsman Cancer Institute and the ESMO MCBS guideline. What are the high priority? High priority means patient's condition is immediately life-threatening, clinically unstable, and or magnitude of benefit qualifies the intervention as high priority. For example, significant overall survival gain or substantial improvement in quality of life. So these are the high priority when immediate life-threatening problem is there. And medium priority when the patient's situation is non-critical but delay beyond 6 weeks would potentially impact overall outcome and or magnitude of benefit qualifies for intermediate priority. And the low priority is the patient's condition is stable enough that services can be delayed for duration of COVID pandemic. So this is the low priority group. High priority, post-operative unstable clinical scenario, breast cancer diagnosis during pregnancy, these are high priority that needs immediate intervention. And high medium priority is the new diagnosis of invasive breast cancer for multidisciplinary tumor board discussion, biology and stage will drive priority. On treatment patients with new symptoms or side effects, depending on severity of symptoms, side effects, burden of progression, etc. Convert as many visits as possible to telemedicine visits. Intensify safety monitoring for those patients on oral chemotherapy or endocrine therapy plus biological agents. And medium priority, new diagnosis of non-invasive cancer. So here convert as many visits as telemedicine to telemedicine. Post-operative visits in patients with no complication. So here also we can convert to telemedicine. And low priority, established patients with no new issues refer to telemedicine. Survivorship follow-up, that is cancer in follow-up in cancer survivor. And follow-up for patients at high risk of breast cancer, that is BRCA carrier, these are basically screening and psychological support, this can be delayed. Regarding diagnostics, self-imaging, diagnostics and imaging, in high priority cases, we cannot delay. We have to do the intervention on time. In medium priority, that can be delayed, and in low priority, we can postpone. For radiation oncology, high priority, palliative treatment of bleeding, painful, inoperable breast mass, and this cannot be delayed. So we have to do this on time. So palliative treatment should be started on time. We cannot delay when control of symptoms cannot be achieved pharmacologically. That means if the medicine fails, so radiation is needed. Patients already on radiation treatment, so that should not be delayed. Acute spinal cord compression or symptomatic brain metastasis or any urgent palliative radiotherapy, these are the top priority and high priority, we cannot delay. And adjuvant post-operative radiotherapy for high-risk breast cancer patients, inflammatory disease at diagnosis, node-positive disease, triple-negative breast cancer or HER2-positive breast cancer, residual disease at surgery or post-neoadjuvant chemotherapy, young age, that is early breast cancer, but young age, all these patients are the high priority patients and radiotherapy should not be delayed. Medium priority comes in this group, the adjuvant post-operative radiotherapy for low or intermediate risk breast cancer patients, for example, age less than 65 years or stage 1, stage 2 luminal cancer, ER positive regardless of nodal status or positive margin. Use of hypofractionated regimen should be considered to reduce hospital visits. Endocrine therapy can be started during the waiting period. So we can buy time by giving endocrine treatment in between. And low priority means we can avoid the radiotherapy. Elderly patients with low risk breast cancer, like age more than 70 years, with low risk stage 1 ER positive, HER negative breast cancer, starting adjuvant endocrine therapy is recommended while postponing radiotherapy, and in case of carcinoma in situ. And high priorities in breast cancer, early breast cancer, regarding medical oncology. So I have already discussed in the previous in the NCCN guideline category, but it is to summarize. Neoadjuvant high priority patients are neoadjuvant and adjuvant chemotherapy for TNBC patients, that is triple negative breast cancer patients. Neoadjuvant and adjuvant chemotherapy in combination with targeted therapy for HER2 positive breast cancer patients. Neoadjuvant and adjuvant endocrine therapy plus minus chemotherapy for high risk ER positive HER negative breast cancer as defined by the current guidelines. Completion of neoadjuvant chemotherapy with or without anti-HER2 therapy, which has already been initiated. Continuation of adjuvant capecitabine treatment in high-risk TNBC patients and TDM1 in high-risk HER2 positive breast cancer patients in the post-neoadjuvant settings. And all these are high priority patients, and treatment should be completed on time in this group of patients. Continuation of treatment in the context of clinical trial provided patient benefit outweigh risk. So these are medical oncology patients, high priority. And medium priority patients are those who are for postmenopausal women with stage 1 cancer, with low intermediate grade tumors, lobular breast cancer. Endocrine therapy may be started first, while surgery can be delayed. For patients with low risk genomic signature or score, prefer endocrine therapy alone. Ongoing adjuvant trastuzumab alone may be postponed by 6 to 8 weeks in patients at high risk of complication. And low priority patients, follow-up imaging and all those maintenance type of treatment, restaging studies, ECG, echocardiography, and mammogram, all those intervention can be postponed. What are the key recommendations? Now, the continuation of standard adjuvant endocrine therapy in pre and postmenopausal setting, use of telemedicine is opted. So, this should be converted to telemedicine visit instead of hospital visit. Neoadjuvant endocrine therapy is an option for patients with ER positive, HER negative breast cancer. And for selected HER2 positive breast cancer, low risk patients and low risk or elderly patients with cardiovascular or other comorbidities, adjuvant anti-HER2 therapy may reasonably be discontinued after some doses. If chemotherapy is considered for a patient with ER positive, HER2 negative breast cancer, then it can be delayed. And chemotherapy schedule may be modified to reduce access to hospital. For instance, using 2 or 3 weekly dosing instead of weekly dosing. I have mentioned with an example of paclitaxel and docetaxel. And GCSF, prophylactic GCSF should be given. To conclude, in the context of COVID-19 pandemic, routine breast screening is suspended. Patients with early breast cancer be treated as outpatients as much as possible at the nearest medical center. Examine all the investigations and appointments of patients on follow-up or under adjuvant endocrine therapy should either be postponed or managed through telemedicine. Treatment should follow international guidelines as much as possible, but effort should be made to minimize the number of hospital visits. All treatment decisions should be taken in the context of a multidisciplinary tumor board, which may take place virtually. all treatment decision making should be balanced with risk and benefit of treatment in the context of the specific COVID pandemic in case to case basis. Thank you. If there is
Thank
some
you.
question, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mehdi sir, for this in-depth explanation of the subject and highlighting all the important aspects related to breast cancer management during COVID pandemic. And I am sure the doctors who have joined us, it would be beneficial for them into the day-to-day practice. Now, I would request all the participants that if you have any question, you can type it in the Q&A box below. Mehdi sir would be happy to answer them. You can type the questions in Q&A box below. Till time, sir, they type, we have few questions in our WhatsApp box. I'll just read it for you. How would you rate the role of telehealth or telemedicine, especially in management of breast cancer for those patients who are already undergoing treatment in COVID era?
As I have mentioned, priority-wise, if patients are on follow-up or adjuvant endocrine therapy, all these patients, we have converted all those patients to telemedicine mode because to avoid the hospital visit, this is the best way to avoid the hospital visit. Those patients who are on active treatment means in high-risk patients on chemotherapy or anti-HER2 therapy, those patients we cannot convert to telemedicine. But in those patients also, if there is some problem in between, suppose after chemotherapy or after chemotherapy, after some days, some patient is having some problem. So in pre-COVID era, we used to call the patient to hospital or we used to advise those patients to see some local doctor. But in this scenario of COVID pandemic, we advise them to convert to telemedicine mode. But for active treatment or intravenous treatment on those patients, we cannot do that. But obviously for endocrine treatment and follow-up on those patients, the telemedicine is advisable.
True, sir. True. So you covered one point wherein many oncologists are of the views that chemotherapy schedule should be modified in order to reduce patients' frequent access to hospital.
Yes.
What is your observation on it? Will it have an impact on treatment?
There is no impact on treatment because we have some ways to do that. Like in adjuvant treatment of breast cancer, paclitaxel is used weekly for 12 doses.
Okay.
But here, because of COVID, we have reduced that 12 visit to 4 visit by giving paclitaxel 3 weekly, or it is substituted with docetaxel, which is usually given 3 weekly. So this is one way, and those dens, and particularly the guidelines are also saying so. The dose dense chemotherapy. Dose dense means instead of 3 weekly, some chemotherapy are given 2 weekly interval to get better effect, better outcome. Because of COVID, this dose dense chemotherapy is some people are avoiding this dose dense chemotherapy. That means usual protocol is 3 weekly, so the chemotherapy is being given at 3 weekly interval, not as the dose dense, that is not as 2 weekly interval. So there are some modification in that way, but I think that will not affect the outcome grossly. Maybe little few percentage difference in long-term outcome, but considering the vulnerability and risk of COVID and risk of serious COVID infection, this is acceptable.
True, sir. Thank you for clearing this. Dr. Raj Shekhar, he is asking, sir, is there any difference in cancer patient response rate in pre and post-COVID condition?
Response rate wise, I don't think there is any difference, but yeah, some difference is there. If patients suffer from COVID infection, after the second wave, first wave, and after second wave also, we have some patients who were COVID positive in between, And in those patients, whenever the rest of the chemotherapy is being started after some gap, usually after COVID infection, we are giving 1 month gap. That is 1 month time to recover and to restart the chemotherapy schedule. In those cases, because of COVID infection, I think those patients are having some problem in terms of weakness, fatigue, and lack of energy, all those problems. But these are, I think, quality of life is little hampered.
Yeah.
But as such, response to treatment, I don't think there is any difference so far.
One more question. In COVID scenario, as per your practical experience, are you using immunotherapy in TNBC?
Yes. Uh, at the beginning of the COVID last year, uh, initially we thought, many people thought that immunotherapy, as it reduces, as it alters the immune system, T cell response, there may be some impact on COVID. But it has been found that there is no direct impact on COVID infection or outcome or seriousness of infection with immunotherapy use. So we are routinely using immunotherapy not only in breast cancer but also in other indication wherever it is indicated, wherever it is used.
Last two questions that we have. First question is, it has been recommended to minimize the steroid use in order to mitigate the immunosuppression response. How it can be done without affecting the patient treatment, and are there any alternatives for it?
That is another one important point, because with immunotherapy we do not give steroid.
True.
But if there is a problem, there is complication of immunotherapy like pneumonitis or diarrhea or whatever problem is there. So for treatment of that, steroid is given. But in COVID also, steroid is used as a treatment in a severe COVID or when there is low oxygen saturation. So if some patients are having COVID, and in those cases, obviously not only immunotherapy, but also chemotherapy is also delayed. And also, that's why I think the use of steroid with immunotherapy directly, it doesn't come, but uh, it is given after some gap, some period of time after the COVID recovers from COVID. So directly, I don't think it is there is some relation with the steroid use.
Okay, sir. One last question, and I think this would be beneficial for most of the patients, especially it talks about, can COVID vaccination in any way hamper or obstruct the treatment of a patient who is undergoing this breast cancer treatment?
Yeah, this is also a very important question. In fact, I wanted to tell that uh, there is no problem of COVID vaccination with the treatment of cancer or uh, in any way. That means in the outcome or in the treatment. But one problem, one point is there we have to keep in mind. COVID vaccination may give rise to some side effects, and chemotherapy also can give rise to some side effects. Some side effects are overlapping, like fever, fatigue, or some problems, headache, some problems are overlapping. That's why what is done, although there is no trial or no report of such, but what protocol we are following, chemotherapy is to be given at least after 7 days gap from the COVID vaccination. This is one point, that is after COVID vaccination. And if COVID vaccination is to be given after chemotherapy, there should be at least 15 days gap from the date of chemotherapy. Why? Because after chemotherapy, there is chances of having neutropenia and some other side effect like mucositis or vomiting or diarrhea, fever, all these problems. Usually, all these problems subsides after 15 days. That is after 2 weeks. So, vaccination should be given, COVID vaccination, after 15 days from the last dose of chemotherapy, so that the problem, the side effects of chemotherapy doesn't overlap with the vaccine side effects. And so after vaccination, there should be 7 days gap for the chemotherapy dose, because usually after 7 days, the side effects of vaccination usually subsides and there is no side effect usually after 7 days. So after vaccination, 7 days, and after chemotherapy for vaccination 15 days. This gap is maintained and we have not seen any problem with that.
Very wonderfully explained, sir, and thank you for taking this question. One last question we have from Dr. Rudra Acharya.
Yeah.
He is asking, 7-month pregnancy, LABC, did not get treated because of fear of COVID, and patient is ER positive, HER2 negative. What is your view on it?
This is very complicated situation.
Yeah.
ER positive, HER2 negative patient is fit for endocrine therapy, but 7 month pregnancy, I think considering the baby's health, we should wait for 2 or 3 more months for delivery. This is my personal opinion. I don't have exact answer for this question.
Very true, sir. Yes.
But my opinion is we should wait for 2 months and there should be successful delivery. Then after that, patient should be treated properly.
I hope Rudra sir has got his answer. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking all the questions and clearing the doubts of our doctors and the viewers who have joined us. Any concluding remarks, sir, from your side regarding to this subject?
Yeah, this is a very good discussion, and I appreciate your efforts, and from the RPG, this is a good beginning, and would like to be involved in future also. This is good. Thank you.
True, sir. True. We would also like to be involved with you. Once again, thank you, Mehdi sir, for sharing your valuable time and knowledge with us. It was indeed a pleasure that you were here today with us, and we have learned a lot from your practical experience. And we hope that in future also we can meet again on many such important topics and other parameters. Also, thanks to all the viewers for joining us. What we will do is we will try to provide you the YouTube edited video of this session after approval from Mehdi sir. So once the sir gives his due approval, we will make it live on YouTube. We will share the link to everyone. So till the next time we meet, on behalf of entire team of RPG Life Sciences, stay safe, take care, and goodbye. Thank you.